Hello there, I'm Steve Ince, and I'm the author of a book called The Quinton Quads and the Mystery of Malprentice Manor. And on the back you can see a picture of the quads, along with their arch nemesis, Evil Edith. Now, what I'd like to do today is just read an excerpt from the first chapter, which is called Worms for Breakfast. "We need to go outside," Kaz yelled as she hurtled down the stairs and exploded into the kitchen. Mum's in one of her moods again. Kaz was one of the Quinton Quads, 4 sisters who had a reputation for mischief, even though such behaviour was never intentional. Any trouble that came about did so as a purely accidental consequence of their adventurous and imaginative natures, which took them along paths determined by their curiosity. At least, that was how they saw it, but others, like their mum, always seemed to take a different view. "What have you done this time?" Sally asked. "It's only the first day of the summer holidays, and she's already mad at us." Of the 4, Sally was the eldest by about 5 minutes, followed by Kaz, Poppy and Em in turn, and she liked to think of herself as the leader of their little band. It wasn't that she was overly bossy or tried to assert her seniority to the detriment of the others, but out of all of them, she was most like their mum, and she was the bossiest person the girls had ever known. And unfortunately, Sally did have a tendency to keep the others organised, with an unwelcome flair for creating detailed schedules. "Actually, Mum might only be mad at her," Em piped up, speaking around a mouthful of toast. She was the most thoughtful and academic of the 4, and generally slower at eating because her mind always strayed onto thoughts about science or nature. And the others suspected that Mum liked Em best, simply for the fact that she made far less noise than they did. But such was their united nature that none of them had ever discussed it openly or made any kind of deal about it. "You know how it works, Em," Poppy said. "If one of us is in trouble, we all share it." And although the girls were pretty positive overall, Poppy was the most optimistic of the quads and could generally see the bright side of most situations. She'd always looked for the good in people too, and tried to make sure that everyone would be friends with one another. She preferred having fun through spontaneous play, rather than any strict organisation and planning, but her positive nature meant that she didn't like to upset Sally by saying something about the latter's schedules. "If we're in trouble, it's more than likely something Kaz did," Sally added. "Hey!" Kaz yelled. "That's unfair!" But her sisters stared at her with looks that showed they knew it to be true. "Well, OK, little Tommy got into my jar of worms and started eating them." "Ooh," the other 3 said in unison, pulling faces to match. "Worms for breakfast!" "Well, I don't see how it's only my fault." Kaz folded her arms and frowned. She was right, of course. While it had been her idea to collect the worms, all 4 of the quads had helped her to do so, even though none of them had any idea what they were going to do with the collection once they'd filled the jar. The quads hadn't even considered that Tommy, their brother, would get into the jar, let alone decide the earthworms were worthy of eating. But being only 14 months old and rapidly becoming an expert in walking and climbing where he shouldn't, keeping an eye on him had become a full-time job for Mum, even though the girls were supposed to help out. They'd recently had their 10th birthday, just a couple of months earlier, but when their mother was at her most exasperated, she claimed the girls combined had given her 40 years of stress. Clearly bringing the girls up to be strong and independent was a mixed blessing. "Where's Dad?" asked Em. "He's got a business meeting on the golf course," Poppy answered, and they all nodded knowingly. It wasn't that Dad shirked his family responsibilities in any way, but there were times he felt outnumbered and needed to get his head together by getting angry at his golf clubs and a series of small dimpled balls. Weird that. The only time that Dad seemed to love golf was when he wasn't actually playing the game. "See, it's not me she's really mad at," said Kaz, and her 3 sisters shrugged. Suddenly, there was a scream from upstairs, followed immediately by Mum yelling, "If I catch those girls, I'm going to have their guts for garters." "Time to get some fresh air," Poppy said, and they headed for the kitchen door as one. They jostled through it as smoothly as a shoal of fish squeezing between jagged coral while avoiding a dangerous predator. They shot out of the house and hurtled down the garden path. Now, if you enjoyed that little reading from my book, you can order it from Amazon, and I'll put the links below. It's available in both paperback and on Kindle. I hope you enjoy that. Perhaps I will read another section another day. Thank you very much. Bye.